Chris Pines Kirk won the Star Trek Dare that made him join Starfleet. When J.J. Abrams rebooted Star Trek in 2009, he didn't just reintroduce audiences to the legendary crew of the USS Enterprise, he reinvented James T. Kirk as a reckless, self-destructive genius who could only be pulled into greatness by a dare. Chris Pine's version of Kirk isn't the polished commander we know from William Shatner's Star Trek, the original series. Instead, he's a hot-headed kid from Iowa who drinks too much, picks fights in bars, and speeds toward a wasted life. What changes him forever isn't destiny or a carefully planned career path. It's a challenge, a double-dog dare from Captain Christopher Pike that reshapes his entire future. That dare is central to what makes Pine's Kirk unique. It's bold, cinematic, and deeply personal, rewriting Kirk's origin story for a new generation while staying true to the core of his character, a man who thrives when pushed, who only rises to greatness when someone calls him out. Winning that dare is what made Pine's Kirk a Starfleet officer, and it's the secret ingredient that made audiences believe he could one day sit in the captain's chair. Kirk at his lowest. The 2009 Star Trek movie opens with young James Kirk already marked by tragedy. His father, George Kirk, dies a hero on the USS Kelvin minutes after James is born, saving hundreds of lives at the cost of his own. This loss hangs over James' entire childhood. Unlike the prime timeline Kirk, who grew up with his father's guidance, Pine's version is haunted by absence and bitterness. By the time we see him as an adult, Kirk is angry at the world. He's brilliant, acing standardized tests without even trying, but uses his mind for self-destruction. He picks fights with Starfleet cadets in a Riverside, Iowa bar. He steals cars and speeds them off cliffs. He wastes his potential because no one has ever dared him to do better. That's when Christopher Pike enters his life. Pike's challenge. Bruce Greenwood's Captain Pike is the perfect foil for Pine's Kirk. Where Kirk is reckless and cynical, Pike is steady, calm, and inspiring. After breaking up Kirk's bar brawl, Pike doesn't dismiss him as a lost cause. Instead, he sees through the anger to the brilliance beneath. Pike tells Kirk something no one else has dared to say. You're here because you know something. What you don't know is why you're here. You're meant for something better. Then Pike raises the stakes. Join Starfleet. Prove you're not just another wasted genius. He even twists the knife with a personal jab, telling Kirk that his father commanded a starship for 12 minutes and saved 800 lives. Pike challenges him to do better, to live up to that legacy. And he puts the challenge in terms Kirk can't resist, a dare. Pike tells him, flat out, that he doubts Kirk can do it. That he doesn't think Kirk has what it takes to be more than a troublemaker. It's a line designed to sting, and it does. For Kirk, who has spent his life rebelling against authority, the only way to respond is to prove Pike wrong. The dare becomes the turning point. The brilliance of Abrams' reboot is that it reframes Kirk's decision to join Starfleet not as a destiny-driven choice, but as a reaction to a personal challenge. The prime Kirk was always destined for greatness. Pine's Kirk is dared into it. Kirk doesn't spend weeks reflecting or weighing the pros and cons. Instead, the very next day he shows up at the Riverside shipyard, hungover, bruised, but determined. He smirks at Pike, climbs onto his motorcycle, and joins the shuttle filled with cadets heading to Starfleet Academy. It's not about a noble calling. It's about proving Pike wrong. That dare is the ignition spark for everything that follows. Kirk meeting McCoy, taking the Kobayashi Maru test, clashing with Spock, and ultimately assuming command of the Enterprise. Without Pike's challenge, Kirk might have spent his life drinking and fighting in Riverside. With it, he's launched into history, winning the dare. Of course, Kirk doesn't just take the dare, he wins it in the most Kirk way possible, by bending the rules until they break. His infamous solution to the Kobayashi Maru test isn't about strategy or patience, it's about refusing to accept a no-win scenario. Kirk cheats, reprogramming the simulation so that he can rescue the stranded crew against impossible odds. Spock sees this as dishonorable. Starfleet sees it as grounds for disciplinary action. But Pike? Pike sees exactly what he hoped for when he dared Kirk to join Starfleet: ingenuity, fearlessness, and refusal to bow to the impossible. Pike doesn't punish Kirk for his arrogance. He promotes him. Because while Kirk may be reckless, he's also exactly the kind of reckless Starfleet sometimes needs. By the end of the movie, when Pike hands over command of the Enterprise, Kirk has more than won the dare, he has redefined it. Pike dared him to live up to his father's example. Instead, Kirk forges his own legacy, one that will rival and even surpass George Kirk's. Why the dare works for this Kirk? Chris Pine's Kirk needed the dare in a way Shatner's Kirk never did. In the 1960s, Kirk's story was that of the model officer, ambitious, polished, and already on the fast track to command. But audiences in 2009 were different. They didn't want a flawless hero. They wanted someone rough around the edges, someone who had to fight his way out of failure. The dare works because it makes Kirk's story relatable. Who hasn't been underestimated? Who hasn't had someone tell them they can't do something? That sting of doubt is universal, and Kirk's defiance in the face of it makes him instantly likable. He doesn't join Starfleet out of lofty ideals. He joins to prove somebody wrong. And in proving Pike wrong, he proves himself right. The ripple effect of the dare. What makes this storytelling choice brilliant is how it ripples across the rest of the trilogy. Pike's dare doesn't just recruit Kirk into Starfleet, it defines his relationship with risk, authority, and destiny. In Star Trek Into Darkness, Pike doubles down on his mentorship, once again challenging Kirk to be more responsible. Pike's death devastates Kirk precisely because Pike was the man who believed in him first, who dared him into greatness. That loss becomes the emotional engine that drives Kirk's growth in the sequel. In Star Trek Beyond, Kirk questions whether he joined Starfleet for the right reasons. He wonders if his life is just about living up to his father or Pike's dare. That existential doubt shows that while Kirk won the dare, he still struggles with what it means to build a life beyond it. In other words, the dare isn't just a fun origin, it's a character-defining moment that continues to shape Kirk across every movie. Why Chris Pine sold it? A big reason the dare works is because of Chris Pine's performance. Pine plays Kirk not as a young Shatner impersonator, but as a brash kid with something to prove. He brings a modern sense of humor, sarcasm, and vulnerability that makes Kirk's decision to take Pike's dare believable. You believe this Kirk is reckless enough to dive headfirst into Starfleet on a whim, but also smart enough to succeed once he's there. Bruce Greenwood, too, deserves credit. His Pike isn't a drill sergeant barking orders. He's calm, fatherly, and inspiring, which makes his challenge to Kirk sting more. When someone you respect dares you, it means more than when an enemy taunts you. Greenwood's steady presence makes the dare feel like destiny disguised as defiance. The dare as Star Trek's heartbeat. At its core, Star Trek has always been about exploration, not just of space, but of character. By giving Kirk a dare instead of a destiny, Abrams tapped into a fresh way to explore the man who would become one of Starfleet's greatest captains. The dare is what makes this reboot resonate with audiences who didn't grow up on the original series. It reframes Kirk's story foe.